Hello friends, today I'm going to tell you about the movie Lock Up. The father exiles the disobedient son to a special boarding school, aka the torture center, where they teach how to control aggression. The film, based on real events, begins with the fact that the main character, teenager Fran, communicates with his best friend and girlfriend via video chat. He drinks beer in front of the computer and smokes. Suddenly his father Luis comes into the room. He has to get up early, and loud noise prevents him from falling asleep. The teenager rudely snaps at the old man to leave, but the father does not leave. He tries to talk to his son while his friends are patiently waiting. In the morning, sleepy and irritated, Luis goes to work to manage the store. The idiot son is having fun at this time. Having scored on school, he smokes with friends, listens to music, drinks, and caresses with a girl. Later, the father is informed that Fran dropped out of school a long time ago, and then they call from the hospital and ask him to pick up the offspring who got into a fight. The man has to go to the emergency room, where the parents of Meg, Fran's friend, are already waiting. They speak out in the spirit that Fran has a bad effect on their child. After waiting for the end of the examination, Luis picks up his son. He tries to talk to him on the way home, but in the underground garage he breaks down and wants to leave. The man catches up with his son, but the teenager yells at him and slaps him, then runs away. When Luis returns home in the evening, his son is no longer there. He has gone to the disco to have fun with friends, dance, drink, and snort illegal substances. A father alone lights candles on a birthday cake for his son, who is 17 years old. Worried that he can't find a common language with his child, Luis Googles ways to communicate with teenagers on the internet. He stumbles upon an advertisement for the Simca program, a special psychological correction of aggressive behavior. Parents of difficult teenagers share their experiences, how difficult it was for them to communicate with children before and how easy it became after. While watching the videos, Luis does not notice how time flies, and now at night a stoned Fran wanders, staggering, down the corridor. The guy freezes at the slightly open door to his father's room, but he turns off the light to avoid another unpleasant conversation. The next day, Luis goes to the presentation of Simca. An impressive coach pushes an inspiring speech about how discipline will help to instill in spoiled kids real values and dedication for a successful business. While he listens to the speech, the son is hanging on the phone, drinking alcohol. At the urging of his mother, he disowns his friend, and the girl hints that they had nothing serious, so it's not worth building far-reaching plans. Frustrated Fran continues to pour grief. That's how his father finds him in the evening. At night, two specially trained people drag a half-naked teenager out of the bedroom. He fights back, kicks, screams, and calls for his father. But Luis has already prepared a suitcase with things and accompanies his son to the boarding school at the door. The guy is thrown into a minivan and driven along a picturesque serpentine away from the city. There he is met by his father Oscar, the chief of the educators. The man is dissatisfied that the new barefoot and half-naked pupils should observe discipline and act dressed. He also doesn't like the handcuffs on the teenager. Oscar tells them to take them off. Fran perceives this gesture as friendly and calls the guard names. But the educator instantly restores the social hierarchy. He twists the impudent child's hand, pokes his muzzle into the wall, and reads out the basic rules, among which respectful silence in the presence of elders is mandatory. The right to speak is a privilege. Fran is cut bald, given a uniform, and taken to the rest of the group. Children with bloody marks on their chins watch a daily video. They greet the newcomer with a rehearsed speech. When Fran tries to talk to a neighbor, Father Oscar presses pause, and the kids jump up from their seats, reciting the rule of silence. Discouraged by such tension, the hero looks around dejectedly, realizing that they will not mess with him here. The further schedule includes strictly regulated useful work for the benefit of society, the collection of clothespins, as well as group dinners in the dining room. Fran is looking closely at her new comrades, trying to memorize the texts of the obligatory chants. They are shown videos on TV in which psychologists drive theses about acceptable behavior into their heads. Among the educators, Nando's father Oscar also stands out and reprimands him for his appearance and chewing gum, with which he sets a bad example to the pupils. Teenagers also talk to a psychologist who asks them not only about their hidden fears, but also about their relationship with their parents. Fran admits that she misses her father, but he is saddened by the fact that Luis has never really shown paternal love, including to his mother, who left the family when he was little. The teaching staff of the boarding school, headed by Oscar, discusses the upcoming Freedom Day, a kind of holiday for the pupils, designed to show what their life can be outside the institution. Nando, as a newcomer, does not know what it is, and colleagues make fun of him a little, to which he reacts with pathetic speech. Later, during lunch, Nando takes out his anger on one of the pupils, beats his face on the table while the other children are hurriedly eating, pretending that nothing is happening. During the educational process, Nando gets carried away and fills the child's eyes with pepper gas. The director of the boarding school does not like this. Rich parents do not pay money to have their children mutilated. Oscar manages to hush up the matter, disposing of a slight reprimand to a subordinate with a fixing blow to the face on the table. Soon Fran successfully learns the rules. However, he is not yet familiar with punishments, so one day, after lights out, he gets out of the room. Unnoticed by the guards, he descends to the floor below, where he finds the separation of sensory deprivation, complete or partial isolation from the outside world. Even simple conversations are prohibited here. In one of the rooms, the hero sees a teenager tied to a gurney. His eyes and ears were closed, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Fran takes off his mask and headphones, and the poor guy screams for him to kill him out of mercy. Frightened by this reaction, Fran runs back, but the guards notice the escape from the bedroom. The alarm is raised. The hunt begins for him. The hero hides in a corner, and when a guard enters, he rushes at him and beats him into a bloody mess, until the help twisted him. For this act, Father Oscar sentences the whole group to punishment. The children are put on the floor face down, resting their chin on the floor. While they are lying motionless, the guards from time to time turn on the lights and loud music. The situation resembles an episode of Pokemon, causing seizures of epilepsy. After serving her sentence, Fran gets her bloody mark on her chin. At the same time, the children's parents gather for their own rehabilitation program led by psychologist Helena. Lewis says that he cannot find a common language with his son, to which the doctor replies that dialogue is the participation of two parties. Therefore, not only children should learn obedience, but parents are also obliged to participate in their lives. As a successful example, Helena cites Sandra and her parents. The girl graduated from the program. Adults tell how their lives have changed after their daughter's return, but the story ends with the girl urinating and her mother taking her away. Returning home, Lewis, as the psychologist advised, enters his son's room. On his computer, he watches a music video in which his son is fooling around with friends. Among the shots, Lewis himself flashes. The offspring secretly filmed him at work. The video makes the father smile, and the next morning he goes to the boarding school to pick up his son. However, Oscar shows him a video of the beating of the guard and convinces him that Fran is not ready to adapt to society yet. When watching the next video, the young man makes a joke that the teachers hear. The group is being led to another punishment. For not delving into the repeatedly repeated theses, they will have to spend more than a day on their feet with their hands tied and blindfolded. Only the one who lasts the longest will pass the test. The rest will be sent to the sensory isolation unit. Those who squat down are taken out by the guards. At the same time, parents undergo another mutual understanding training. Lewis gets to know Sandra's parents better here. They are worried about their daughter's mental health, but they hope that the trainings will help. The next day, the remaining teenagers are fed, but one less portion than the captives. Unable to come to an agreement, the children swear, and the guards take away all their food. Closer to the night, when the second day began, Helena comes to the cage. A woman takes the guys on video to collect evidence of the cruelty of the methods used in the boarding school. Nando catches her and takes her to Oscar, but the manager sees nothing wrong with the data leak. All these methods are legal. On the third day, Fran is the last one left standing and returns to a measured life according to the schedule. Meanwhile, Luis establishes a warm relationship with Sandra's mother. They have lunch together and their acquaintance develops into a romantic interest. But while she is kissing Luis in the car park, her daughter is watching the torture videos posted by Helena. Unable to withstand the memories of what she experienced, the girl throws herself off the roof right in front of her father, who is immersed in work. The director reprimands Oscar for leaking information. This leads to a tightening of the rules and regime in the boarding school. Pupils are literally driven by physical exercises. Some are sick right in the gym. Nando forces the guilty to clean up the vomit with their bare hands. He also continues to practice beatings with the tacit consent of the rest of the teaching staff. All this leads to the fact that at a certain moment Fran rebels. He freezes in place and does not leave the dining room. Oscar tells them to drag him to the sensory isolation unit. There they tie the guy and cover his eyes and ears. After some time, due to the lack of information from the outside, the brain begins to generate hallucinations, images evoked from the past. The torture ends when the day of freedom comes. Male and female groups gather in the gym to waltz. The exhausted Fran is also brought in, but he does not participate, but looks from the side, sitting on a chair. The students, divided into pairs, waltz on command, but one of the guys, looking at Fran, who dared to openly rebel, freezes. His example is followed by others. Despite the screams and blows of Oscar's father, the event is disrupted by Fran's satisfied grin. Nando even had to twist the boss until he crippled anyone in hysterics. In parallel, similar dances are held for parents, more like a youth disco. One of the conditions is a carnival costume. Lewis tries on one of them, but the absence of Sandra's mother at the party, who was experiencing the death of her daughter, negates all his interest. After the funeral, he meets with a woman. She is going to go far away, so they will not see each other again. Lewis admits that he wants to take his son out of the boarding school, and the woman says that this is the right decision after what they did to her daughter's psyche there. The next day, the man arrives at the boarding school. Fran is taken out immediately, without without even trying to dissuade his father. The teenager silently gets into the car, without even saying hello to Louis. On the way home, he stares out the window with detachment. At home, he meets with his girlfriend, asking how she is doing about his adventures at the boarding school. He does not spread, only regrets that there are still many children left in the dungeons there. Fran does not want to talk to her father, however, he has also stopped being rude. The guy gets rid of the memorabilia from his room, thus breaking the connection with his past self. He does not accept gifts from his father, and in his spare time he shouts, leaning out of the window, into the rainy emptiness of the big city. But one day, standing in the kitchen, he reflexively repeats the chants from the boarding school, which provokes a dialogue. Fran accuses her father that he deliberately gave him to sadists for torture. Louis objects that he was deceived, after which he reads a monologue, confessing to his son that it is also not easy for him to raise him alone, after his mother abandoned them, considering both unnecessary. And it's hard for a man to admit it, and the son only aggravates the situation by blaming his father. In the next scene, they silently drive in a car to some house. Louis goes out to give the owners the documents. Because of the angle of view, it is not visible to whom exactly. As they drive away, Fran asks if it was Mom. Instead of answering, the father gets out of the car and walks away in the rain. His son catches up with him, and they stand together, hugging and hiding their tears in the rain. That's all for today. Put likes and write comments if you want more similar videos.